Richard Fuscone checked every box for traditional success. He held a Harvard degree and spent his career climbing the ranks to become a high-powered executive at a multinational financial firm. On the completely opposite end of the spectrum was Ronald Read. He spent his entire adult life repairing cars at a local gas station and sweeping floors as a janitor. During the 2008 financial collapse, the brilliant Harvard executive lost everything. As the market crashed and his heavily leveraged assets evaporated, he was forced to declare total bankruptcy. 6 years later, in 2014, the humble gas station attendant passed away. When his will was read, his family discovered he had quietly amassed a secret fortune of over $8 million. This contrast proves that accumulating money is a behavioral skill. When wealth is viewed as a result of temperament instead of a mathematical equation, the janitor's success becomes a predictable outcome of discipline. We tend to treat wealth creation like a physics problem, assuming it is governed by hard rules, academic study, and complex formulas. But that approach shatters when it meets human reality. Personal experience dictates how we view risk. A person who started investing in a booming stock market develops a different relationship with financial danger than someone who came of age during a decade-long recession. Because our financial choices are driven by our unique emotional histories, mastering your own psychology is the only real prerequisite for building wealth. Getting wealthy and staying wealthy require two completely opposite skill sets. Making money requires extreme optimism and a willingness to take aggressive risks. Keeping it requires the exact reverse. Jesse Livermore represents the extreme end of wealth acquisition. He famously made $100 million by aggressively betting against the market during the Wall Street crash of 1929. But his insatiable appetite for risk made it impossible for him to pivot to wealth preservation. He continued making massive, highly leveraged bets, and just 4 years later, he had lost every penny and tragically took his own life. Surviving wealth requires an active embrace of fear. You have to maintain an extreme frugality, a trait that highly ambitious people often mistakenly view as a weakness. A simple behavioral equation dictates your actual net worth. Your savings rate is your income minus your ego. Consider the case of Rajat Gupta. He reached the pinnacle of corporate success as the CEO of McKinsey, boasting a personal net worth of around $100 million. $100 million failed to satisfy his ego. Driven by a need to keep up with his billionaire peers, he engaged in illegal insider trading, leaking confidential results to secure guaranteed profits. He risked his reputation, his existing wealth, and his physical freedom just to acquire excess money he had no practical use for. He was eventually caught and sent to federal prison. Unchecked greed neutralizes every ounce of business intelligence. If you cannot practice humility, you simply cannot survive in the financial world. This brings us back to the mundane patience required to succeed, perfectly embodied by Warren Buffett. This chart tracks Buffett's wealth. The line compounding is a psychological endurance test. It rewards leaving money untouched for decades, the exact strategy that allowed Ronald Read to amass millions. This endurance allows for tail events. You can be wrong half the time and suffer individual losses, but long-term patience ensures a few massive winners will eventually cover all your mistakes. Compounding turns time into your greatest financial asset. It forgives your analytical errors, provided you have the emotional discipline to stay in the game. Society constantly falls into a psychological trap by confusing the act of spending money with the act of having wealth. The man in the car paradox describes a specific social projection. When you see someone driving a high-end sports car down the street, you naturally stare. But you aren't admiring the driver. You are ignoring the person behind the wheel, projecting yourself into the driver's seat, imagining the respect you would receive if you owned it. Flaunting wealth is the fastest way to diminish it. Purchasing flashy material goods yields zero actual social reverence from the people around you. There's a vital distinction between being rich and being wealthy. Being rich is having a visible income to buy depreciating things. Wealth is invisible. It is the money you purposefully chose not to spend. The point of accumulating invisible wealth is not to eventually buy a mansion with 11 bathrooms. The goal is to buy absolute, uncompromised control over your own time. Controlling your ego and practicing extreme patience will always outrank raw intellect or an Ivy League degree. A disciplined mindset creates more wealth than a high IQ. Since building a fortune is a behavioral skill, the ability to secure your freedom is already entirely within your control.